It's Tuesday. Chef Erica is getting her lighting together. There she is.
Hey! Hey, sweetheart. How are you today?
You know what? I'm good. You like our background today?
I love it. I'm super excited about the our guest today. So yeah, I love the
Look at us
background.
with like twin hair.
Wild.
Bob
Ah,
line. Okay, I cut a little bit more since last Tuesday,
did you really?
but I'm not gonna cut anymore. My hairdresser is gonna kill me the
Oh
next
no.
time I go in. She's going to kill me. But at least I haven't dyed it or done anything ridiculous where she's gonna be like,
Oh, you're so funny.
so how are you? I saw you were in Atlanta. Tell us about that.
I was in Atlanta. I just got in last night. I did a webinar with Cocoa Town. It was fabulous. I also did some YouTube videos for them
Oh,
to showcase some
yay.
of their chocolate machines. We did like 15 videos.
Oh,
I know, from Saturday to Sunday. But the webinar, we were in 48 countries.
oh, that's amazing.
That was super awesome. Super
And did
awesome.
you get something from them?
I did.
What did you get?
I wish I had a picture to show you. Right now, it's still in a box, like literally right here next to my computer. But I'm sorry. We literally got they gave me a chocolate melanger that tip. I know.
That's exciting. I know you're excited. I know you're
I
excited.
am so excited. I'm so excited. You see
So,
me putting my hair because it's like I literally like ran into the house to plug in the computer so we can do this podcast. So
yay! I've been going from back to back meetings from 3 o'clock on till now. So I just want to talk about what we're doing with the show for the next few weeks leading up to the election.
please do.
Basically, the next few weeks leading up to the election, we're going to be talking about advocacy. And all of the people that we'll be having on the show from here until November 3rd are in some way, shape, or form advocating for disenfranchised people. So today's guest, his specialty is refugee work, and he has an amazing restaurant in Lexington, Kentucky. And I say that he's in Lexington because if anybody's following the news, there's a lot going on in Kentucky right now. And Lexington is a pretty important city. It's a very important electoral race right now. There's a lot going on there that is pivotal to preserving our democracy. And then all the way up until 3rd, what is today's early voting day? So if you guys haven't registered, please register. You can do it now from your computer. You don't have to like.
Today was National Registration Day.
Yes.
Across the United States.
Yep.
Right.
If you guys specifically where we're targeting here, does anybody know any 18-year-olds? I don't have mine, but I just got my 18-year-old's voter registration card in the mail. He turned 18 in August. I got his card. He's going to be voting in his first election, and he's been like, what do I vote for? So we've been having some very poignant discussions about who to vote for, how to decide who to vote for. And so that's why this advocacy piece is very important, because you guys, yes, the presidential election is way important, but all those other people on the ballot are just as important, if not more important than them. And people have got to know where they stand. Of course, our thing is food and food policy and restaurants. And right now, there's just a lot going on with that. So with that, I'm going to bring Chef Dan on so that he can tell us a little bit about himself. And he can talk about the Atomic Ramen just really quickly. And then we can jump right into this conversation.
Right.
Hey, Chef.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, Chef. How are you?
Have you calmed down? We had our boot camp little mini reunion earlier. We were all fired up.
Yeah, I didn't realize the whole time difference thing, so I thought we were going straight from that boot camp meeting to this thing, so I was just like so keyed up and like energized. So thankfully, I cooked dinner for my family. I got to eat. I got to sit outside for a minute, so I'm a little more zen now. But I expect this conversation will probably get me fired back up.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. So before we get into your advocacy work, let's just talk a little bit about you as a chef. what you're doing, what you've done. So I think your TV appearance was MasterChef.
Yeah, MasterChef about 6 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 Everybody always wants to know, how was it?
Yeah. Interesting. Kind of once in a lifetime, crazy, surreal, weird. And it was just a great experience. And the best part of it wasn't being on TV. It basically kickstarted my career as a food professional. So I kind of owe my start to that.
I read on there about something about red velvet with you on the show. And I'm a baker. I'm a pastry chef. So
and I have to be a pastry chef because she's my mentor. So when we both found that little snaggy about desserts, I was like, oh, we're going to have to talk about that.
Thankfully, my PTSD about red velvet cake has finally subsided. But I mean, you all know there's a difference between a cook and a baker. They're two different personalities. I'm 110% a cook because I like to wing things. I like to, for me, like in the kitchen, there's no dish that I can't salvage.
Yeah.
But with baking, you get it in the oven. If you fucked it up, you're done.
That's right.
And that doesn't work for me. So
praise God for cake pops, okay? They have saved a lot of crummy cake.
A lot of money.
So,
on a lot of people.
But yeah, so red velvet cake I'd never dealt with in my life, and I did the best I could. But
you should have known, being from the South, they were going to throw some Southern dessert at you.
I guess I practiced some dessert. I practiced souffle. Actually, I got really good at souffle. They never threw that at me. I could have done a good souffle or like a molten lava cake. I had that down, but of course they throw red velvet cake at me. So.
Well, and so now you know what I try to tell people: red velvet is not as easy as it looks. People think that it's just throwing some sugar and oil in the thing and a whole bunch of red coloring, and like, no.
Yeah.
It's not that easy. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm glad that you have survived your red velvet kerfuffle, and you're living to see another day in the kitchen. Exactly. So how did that experience? You said that it kickstarted your culinary career. So how did that transfer you from? I mean, I guess it put Dan on the map. And then where did you take it from there?
Exactly. I was very lucky to come back to Lexington, Kentucky, which I always think is kind of a perfect size place because it's big enough for interesting things to be happening, and it's small enough to where you can be a big fish. I had friends from the show who lived in like LA or New York, and nobody cares that you were on a TV show. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go make a huge splash on anything. So I came back, I had my 8 weeks of fame on TV. I did a bunch of watch parties and basically kind of parlayed that into a private dining career where people would get me for like small events and small catering, and then just kind of grew that into some pop-ups and some restaurant takeovers, and then a restaurant, brick and mortar opportunity came along about 3 years ago, so I jumped into it and did that for almost 3 years until COVID, shut us down in May. So I'm down to, I have kind of an ancillary location inside a dining hall at the University of Kentucky. So I still have that going, but I no longer have my brick and mortar. So that's the short story of Atomic Ramen.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
I only got to get some of your information, your history on your livelihood and your career. I thought it was interesting. Your dad was a scientist with University of Kentucky, and then you guys bought some Subways?
Yeah, there's a very common thing that happens with first generation immigrants. Some of us come from my dad came from an academic background. He was a virologist by training, scientist. And then at some point he realizes he wants to try to make some money and grab some of this American dream. So he researched franchises. And the number one franchise at the time was McDonald's, but it was really expensive to get into. And Subway was a lot more reasonable, and he took a shot at it. So we ended up at some point, trying not to sneeze here, at some point.
Because sneezing is as bad as public cursing these days.
Yeah, well, I public curse all day long, but I'm trying to keep these allergies under control. Yeah, so at some point we owned a bunch of Subway sandwich shops. And so by hook or by crook, I kind of learned a lot about small business not just how to run a small business, but how not to run a small business as well. So in a roundabout way, I kind of returned to those roots of my childhood.
Awesome. I just wanted to ask that question. I thought that was quite interesting, and especially that your dad was a scientist. Food, regardless of if you're a baker or a chef, we're still scientists in the kitchen.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that was in your blood to actually become who you are right now.
And not to mention that he was at the University of Kentucky, and now you have an ancillary location at the University of Kentucky, which is really great. So then I guess being a first generation immigrant, is that kind of where the advocacy piece started? Because I think as chef owners, we are all advocates, whether we want to be or not. We just don't realize that we are until we're, something major happens in your career that then it's like, oh, wow, I do have this role. So how did you transition to that?
For me, it's not even so much necessarily the immigrant piece of it. It's after I came off of MasterChef, I had a lot of local notoriety and some national notoriety, and I realized that I wanted to parlay that into something more than just, talking about me, and what am I doing. People would actually give me the time of day. People would actually give me an interview. People wanted to write a piece about me. And I realized there were a lot more things I cared about, and I can use that platform and use that stage and use that spotlight to talk about stuff other than me. And it's been a really powerful driver for me for the last several years, that I know, you all probably know this, like local TV, they're always hungry for like guests and segments. They're always trying to fill time. Yeah. So if I call up my contacts at any of the 3 local TV stations and say, hey, can I come on and talk about this project I'm working on? I get booked and I'm there the next day in studio doing my little 3 minutes. So if I can parlay that into saying, hey, I want to come and talk about, immigrant and refugee rights. I want to talk about this project that we're doing, that we created. I want to talk about voter rights. I want to talk about LGBTQ rights, food, availability, sustainability, anything, I had that platform. So I've been kind of running with it since.
That's amazing. And that's amazing. So I'm transitioning again as we're getting in this advocacy conversation. I think the one thing that I learned from boot camp, and then kind of where my headspace was going prior to that, is that all throughout this conversation, people keep saying they're underprivileged. These people are underprivileged. They're underprivileged. They're underprivileged. And so something about the word underprivileged just never really kind of set right with me. And then it's like, because really some of the things that you were talking about as a refugee, the right to, basic needs, those are not privileges. We're talking about food access. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about healthcare. We're talking about education for your children or yourself. Those are not privileges.
Yeah, and we're talking about like physical safety. I mean, you're talking about LGBTQ kids and trans kids. We're not even talking about any other right besides the right to live.
Safe. Yeah. So that's where I've really been trying to change people's thought process about it and say that these are under-resourced communities, not underprivileged communities, because we're not handing out Gucci belts and Louis Vuittons. Okay. Yeah. We're trying to give people, in my case, fresh produce and nutrient-dense meals.
Yeah.
Those aren't privileges.
The thing that I would love to hammer home to like the powers that be and lawmakers is this, because I think you can approach this kind of advocacy from different angles, right? You can say like, hey, do you care about people? Hey, do you care about human rights? Hey, do you care about kids going hungry, right? The flip side of that, or the side piece of that is, do you care about the economy? Do you care about driving tax revenue to your state? Because all the things that we're talking about, when you house people, they become productive citizens that can contribute to the tax base, that can contribute to the employment base, that go out and spend their income. When you talk about things like reparations, that puts money in people's pockets. They're not people who would receive reparations. They're not taking it offshore into a Swiss bank account and throwing it away the way that our big, business, CEOs do. they're going to spend it. They're going to send their kids to college. They're going to buy a house. They're going to be in the real estate market. They're going to be in the car market. They're going to go start their own small business and employ people. So I'm at the point in my advocacy, especially with talking to the powers that be, I kind of have given up a little bit on the why you should care about human beings, like the empathy side. And it's kind of sad that I've given that up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm always talking in economic terms. You know, we talk about the Restaurant Act, for example. It's a $120 billion, rescue package for our restaurant industry, but it's going to turn around and get us, what was it? The estimate was like $270 billion in revenues. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're handing us money and it's going into the ground. When you give people money, give people help and resources, they put it right back out into the world, twofold, threefold, tenfold, and it helps the entire economy. So it boggles my mind that even people who may not care about people, they can't see the numbers. They can't see the writing on the wall and go from that angle at least and say, hey, this is the right economic approach. So
Right.
That's
and that's kind of where I think I am with a lot of this thing. And people, like, I've even given up on social media about getting into these like tit for tats with people about it. It's the Democrats versus the Republicans versus this. I was like, no, let's just look at the bill for the bill. Let's look at what they've proposed. Let's look at what they've proposed. And let's take out all of the big business and the mumbo jumbo and the jargon. Okay. Let's just not even go there. For me, my thing is food access. So let's just talk about how one side or the other plans on dealing with all of the people who are food insecure as a result of this pandemic. So one person has a $60 million package and the other person has a $250,000 package. There's 4 million children right now in this country who are just children. We're not talking seniors. We're not talking underemployed adults. We're just talking kids. 4 million kids who are dealing with food insecurity and food access issues. Can you service 4 million people with $250,000?
Yeah. And it boggles my mind too. Like when you drill down to something so basic as food access for children.
Right.
What justification can you come up with on the other side of this argument? What part of whether or not you want to be fiscally responsible or whatever it is, that's a basic thing that we need to be providing for the people who live in this country.
Right. And COVID has shown you on the flip side in some of these more affluent school districts that it's possible. Mm-hmm. If they can come up with a way for you to virtually homeschool your child and pick up 5 days worth of lunch and breakfast without you having to jump through all the hoops of red paper and filling out applications and going to the child services office and bring in your SNAP benefit letter or you don't have to do any of that. You just have to notify the school that you want to go pick up the meal on that Friday.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have done that before?
Yeah. So they've shown us that it is possible, mm-hmm. just the lacking in the political will. And it's possible, it's in the same way that like in recent years, we've been talking about the opioid crisis, and that's couched in terms of it being a medical crisis, a disease crisis.
Right.
They never talked that way about crack. They never talked that way when the people who are suffering from it were people of color and people in the inner city and Black folks. But when it affects white folks, it suddenly becomes a different conversation and it's treated differently. And now it's this, national crisis that we don't police our way out of. Like nobody, you know what I mean? It's just like, right. It's amazing how the same exact problem and you treat one group this way and one group this way. And it, to me, like if you can't see systemic racism in this country from those kind of examples, you're just not.
You just don't want to at that point. You just don't want to. So we mentioned that you're in Lexington, and especially after Friday, was it Friday or Saturday? Saturday's news. Was it Saturday or Friday?
Friday night.
Friday night. So RBG passed on Friday night and kind of sent shockwaves through, most of the people that I communicate with. So now you're in Kentucky. And if anybody doesn't know who is the most notable politician in Kentucky at this moment is, I don't even want to say his name.
That's okay. I'll say it for you. The Senate Majority Leader, the Grim Reaper himself, hails from Kentucky, McConnell, and he did not waste any time. Within an hour of her body wasn't even cold yet, he immediately comes out to do exactly the opposite of what he advocated for 4 years ago. And surprising no one. No one was ever surprised that Mitch McConnell would be a hypocrite and go back on his own word.
I was surprised about the timing. I was
surprised.
Did y'all waited till Monday morning?
He doesn't give a shit. He's about power. I mean, here's the thing that I'll give him. At what he does, he is effective. He is phenomenally effective. That I'll give him. I disagree with basically everything he stands for, and beyond just pure policy, he is contributing to the destruction of the democracy by doing things like holding up Merrick Garland in 2016 and then flipping and doing the exact opposite this year. Those are all undemocratic sort of practices. So he is the biggest enabler of this president that we have. And some might even argue he's a bigger danger to the country than Trump is.
I would agree. And what's mind-boggling to me is that the conversation about the Restaurant Act and the HEROES Act has, for the last day and a half, non-existent. They're not even discussing it anymore. We have it's like, oh, well, who cares? People are suffering, struggling. Now we want to jump topics and focus on this other thing right here. And, here in Kansas City, we just had another very popular small restaurant close, and they're closing faster than they're reopening. And I don't understand what people don't understand that's going to do with jobs and availability. Restaurants and food service establishments employ a lot of people.
Yeah. Our industry, I think, is the largest employer of single mothers, I think, of the industry. We employ so many people of color, so many just working, pure working class people who are working 2-3 jobs because there aren't very few paying living wages out here in this industry as well. It's such a tough industry on any good day.
Yeah.
And COVID, what it does is it kind of tears open the facade that might have been hiding a lot of these inequities and lays them very, very bare to say, no, this is the country we live in. I remember I was talking to somebody, or I saw a chart the other day, how the economy goes up and down in this kind of wave. And what's happening now it's a K shape where the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. The line is split, and it's not even a K. It's almost literally up and down. You see, I think Jeff Bezos or Amazon's sales went up 40% in the last 6 months.
And I can't even be mad at him because I can't get stuff at the store. I literally have no choice but to order it on Amazon.
I can get mad at him plenty. That's a whole nother show we can do on Jeff Bezos.
And some of the other online places, you're like, the lead time, if you're trying, I'm like, well, I did need toilet paper, but that was 6 weeks ago. I don't need it now. I went ahead and found some because it took so long for it to come. So people are saying, I'm like, it can't, I don't want to say it can't get any worse for the under-resourced community because it can certainly get worse. But I think that it's going to have to get worse and almost desperate and dire before it gets better. And that's a really sad space to be in.
I absolutely think it's going to get worse. My problem with your thesis is, and I like the idea of that, at some point we have to hit rock bottom and come back up. But the driver of the comeback up has to be from the federal level. we talked about this during the boot camp too, talking about like, oh, what can restaurants do for themselves? Can they do patios? Can they do covered patios? Can they do these little like encased, dining situations? All these efforts, creative, desperate efforts by people in our industry to survive, they're not going to do it. It's not going to work. We need revenue replacement right now. People need income replacement. People, all these.
Because most of the part that people are not taking into consideration with this ingenuity that's coming from the industry, they're also operating in some spaces of the country at 20 and 30% occupancy. So
Yeah.
you want me to go from a 150 seat restaurant to a 25 or 30 seat patio?
Yeah. Nobody can operate that way. And they're desperately trying. And I 100% think that when the winter months hit, when the patios start to close, all that PPP money is used up.
PPP money should mostly be gone.
Yeah.
Unless those people who got in at the last end. So there's a few of those last end people who have some.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still spending the last of it. I've got another, I think, about a month to spend mine. And after that, you know what I mean? Like all bets are off. So come December, come January, February are the worst months anyway for the restaurant industry. Come those coldest winter months, we will see an accelerating decimation of our industry. We're going to see lots of beloved restaurants shuttering. And it's the big players who are going to survive this thing. It's going to be not even the big players. Some, I have friends who own multiple locations and they're doing their best. If they have 4 or 5 locations, they'll shut down 2 of their underperforming ones,
right?
Consolidate their staff, go to bare bones, do delivery, do whatever they can to survive. They may get through this. Now, they're not going to get through it unscathed.
No, I feel like the restaurant business is like Mount St. Helens right now. It's an old volcano and it's crusty and there's a lot of like old lava on the top and it's starting to crack and crumble and there's an eruption coming. And there's some people who are on the outskirts of that, some of the larger, some of the more established small businesses that may get singed.
Yeah.
But there's some people on the hills and the peaks.
The people who are going to sink are the mom and pop, immigrant owned, people of color owned small businesses, one location where the owner and, his wife or her wife or, the couple, they will be working, 80 hours a week with their son and their nephew and their cousins, staffing the kitchen. They don't have investors. They don't have people that they can call up to give them more capital. They didn't get a loan from the bank because they don't have traditional banking or they don't have line of credit or they don't speak the language or they're not part of the mainstream culture.
Or their bank is not participating and then the other banks are so overloaded that they weren't taking on any new applications. So it just kind of put them in a situation where they are basically out. Excluded.
Yeah. And those folks, they've put all of their money and resources into this one shot at the American dream.
Yeah.
They're not going to get a second shot at it the way a lot of big investor, fancy, big name chef type restaurants, they can always dig and come up with another couple million and open another concept maybe in 2 years when the dust settles. But a lot of these mom and pops, to me, the backbone of the American economy and the American culture. Like American culture is made up of all these disparate groups who are contributing food and culture and music and literature and film and everything else to our culture. They're the ones going to get hit the most. So not only do we suffer economically, we're going to suffer culturally. Our culture is going to take a hit,
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And it's like, you don't even know, like we said today, when we were all kind of talking, there's a sense of hopelessness amongst restaurant owners right now. And there's a sense of like, I don't even know what to do. I think all of the people I know who own restaurants are kind of having like this Dory approach to the whole situation. I have no idea what to do. I'm just swimming. Like, I don't even know where I'm going. I'm just swimming and, hoping that once I get out of this choppy water, you know, like the scene in Finding Nemo where there's the turtles and you're like swimming against the current. You're like, hopefully these sea turtles are going to be gone soon.
Yeah.
And the water will smooth out and I'll be able to come up for a breath and strategize and figure out what the heck it is that I'm doing. Because I don't think that people know.
Yeah. And in this analogy, unfortunately, the thing that, you know, that we don't have a lot of is money and this,
Yeah.
you know, or oxygen. Like
Our time.
Yeah, by the time that we can come up for air, we might be out of air. You know what I mean? And without that extra help, so it's so hard right now. Like I was going to say even for, but maybe especially for folks like us who are very active, who like we don't sit still. You and I, right? We're always trying to.
Been still, but I've been feeling a little like these last few weeks. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, but it's like we want to be doing something. We want to be effective. We're out there like rousing the rabble and stirring shit up and trying to get organized and do things. And some days it just feels like, what am I even like?
What am I even doing things for? Is it all for naught? Like, what am I even doing things for? Yeah. Am I coming up with a plan or a system? And, you know, for a while in the midst of this, you're trying to plan, you're trying to strategize, and it's like you're playing darts blindfolded and the bullseye is on the back of a squealing pig. So you're just like, I don't even know. I'm just throwing them and hoping that at some point I'm going to hit the target.
Yeah. It's I have good days and I have a lot of not so good days.
But you have had some wins, because today I said on my Instagram that I'm going to celebrate the small win. You did contact someone in Mitch McConnell's office, right?
We've given up on Mitch for the moment. We've been trying to contact Andy Barr, who is our House representative. He and I actually went to the same high school together in the same year. So he knows who I am. And we've had a couple calls to Mitch's office with his staff, never with him. So we've been trying to nail down Andy Barr for a call, and with no luck so far. But the thing that my new tactic that I'm trying is before it would be a representative from the Independent Restaurant Coalition and then some local chefs from like Louisville and Lexington talking. And this time, I thought to myself, like, it's not just restaurants and bars that are suffering. It's suppliers, it's linen companies, it's repair people, it's beverage people, it's people who supply equipment, all that stuff.
It's the small breweries and wine producers who really rely on the farmers, who rely on restaurants to purchase and sell their products.
Exactly. So this time I recruited some folks I know and some folks I don't know. I recruited the owners of Elmwood Stock Farm, which is a really popular local farm here that supplies a lot of restaurants. And then I hooked up with Weisenberger Mill, which is a 100-year-old operation in Kentucky here near Frankfort. And they've been milling their own wheat and cornbread and cornmeal and things like that for over 100 years. That's any restaurant that fries anything or bakes anything uses Weisenberger. So my hope was if we can get a representative or staff on the phone, you've got to care about an iconic 100-year-old business that's also hurting right now because most of their accounts are wholesale accounts with restaurants, with stores. And so if stores close, they lose accounts, they lose money. I mean, imagine a 100-year-old business that's weathered all kinds of stuff. World War I.
Great Depression.
Yeah, the Great Depression. Imagine COVID being the final
thing that takes it out.
Yeah, and we don't want that to happen. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping like bringing in some big names like that might move the needle, but we'll see. We have to get the appointment, so we're still hunting them down.
Yeah. Well, before in the last few minutes, I really want to talk about what's going on there with you guys are waiting for the ruling in terms of the Breonna Taylor case, and it's been very intense outside of the people protesting at Mitch McConnell's house. Just as of last weekend, there have been people there protesting at the district attorney's house.
Yeah, Cameron,
house for weeks.
The attorney general.
Attorney general. Yeah. So how's that been?
It's, for a while there, and this was across the country with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and then also David McAfee, who was a local Louisville chef who also got shot. during some of the protests, actually.
Oh, that was the barbecue man, correct?
That was the barbecue guy. He was in Louisville. Yeah. So, we had that sort of wave of energy. And unfortunately, in a lot of cities, it's kind of ebbed now. Like, we had in Lexington several weeks of just daily spontaneous protests where every night people would just show up downtown and then start to march. It was not even organized. So, and things have kind of turned and twisted, and things have gotten more violent and more heated. And of course, Trump is using that as part of his little law and order, campaigning strategy. And at this point, last I heard, Mayor Greg Fisher of Louisville has declared a state of emergency ahead of Daniel Cameron's announcement. What does that tell you? What does that tell you is about to happen? All of downtown is boarded up, I assume, on the advice of the city. And I mean, we're looking at, I don't know if it's an exaggeration to say we're looking at a Rodney King situation. We're looking at that level of absolute frustration from the people. I mean, if the phrase "no justice, no peace" ever meant anything, I think we're about to see it, and we may see it as soon as tonight, because we've waited 6 months after this woman's killing, and we've gotten nothing except what the LMPD are going to do an internal investigation. Are you fucking kidding me? So we're watching it closely. They're an hour away from us here in Lexington. It feels like a different world. And the city here has been grappling sort of with its own issues, but nothing close to.
Right. And to me, an hour is not a long time. I live 45 minutes from the airport. So
yeah, we have a lot of, there have been a lot of activist friends who have been going to Louisville regularly to demonstrate, to protest, to just show solidarity. So I'm kind of on the edge of my seat a little bit, waiting for kind of on the ground reports from some of my activist friends out there to see what's going to happen on the ground.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like we've been talking about, and I don't want people to be like feel down, but I don't feel like I would be a good culinarian if I didn't bring up some of the issues that are facing the industry, and then people will kind of understand why my moods ebb and flow as nearly as much as they do. This is the only thing I've done. I've done this for 23 years. And then people are like, go get another job. Get another job doing what?
Yeah, exactly.
It's literally the only thing I'm qualified to do, because this is all I've done my entire life.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And just to watch this industry that has provided so much to people. We've done your weddings. We've done your children's birthday parties. We've done your bridal showers. We've done your graduations. We do your funerals. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like there's no.
Well, the positive side of it is we've seen a lot of folks in our industry, because of how bad things are, because of how desperate things are. We've kind of become creative. Well, we've always been creative. I mean, you can't be a small business owner and not be creative.
No, not at all. You're sure about that.
Yeah, our entire MO is we figure shit out, and we figure out how to do with very little. But what's been interesting to me watching is seeing how many folks are stepping into the game to help other people, to create relief kitchens, feed people, and then how many are just kind of putting their blinders on and doing their own thing and trying to survive. And I mean, I'll say this, in our boot camp today, for those who don't know, the James Beard Foundation boot camp that we did for several weeks, today we had kind of a bonus session that wasn't a requirement. It was just like, I wanted to see everybody and ask.
Yeah, it was nice. It was a little reunion. It was great.
We got to ask some questions, but of the 12 participants, there was not a single white guy among us. And there were some, white dudes during the regular boot camp. And it made me think of like, why is that? And in some ways, we talk about privilege. In some ways, a lot of us who are part of marginalized groups, we don't have the privilege to sit it out.
Right.
We don't have the option of saying, okay, I'm not going to be involved anymore. I'm going to try to ride it out. We have no choice but to create solidarity and work with each other and for each other. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at a certain point now where like my second location is just kind of humming along and it is what it is. And there's nothing else I can do for my own business right now to make it better on my own. So it makes me able to put my energy into, okay, what else can I do? Because right now, like this coming winter, I am worried for all of my restaurant friends who still have brick and mortar restaurants, who are still trying to make it a go of it. Those are the people I'm worried about. And those are the people
luckily for you, you're on a college campus and college students have to freaking eat.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, like that wasn't even a sure thing. Like during the summer, I didn't know if UK was going to go back to in person. I didn't know if the dining hall was going to be open. I didn't know if my contract was going to be renewed. And my contract was renewed, but at a reduced rate from last semester. So I'm making less money than I was last semester, which I'm grateful for. You know what I mean? I'm grateful to have income right now. And I used to have 12 employees and now I have 5. But I am grateful to have those 5 and to keep them employed. So I'm grateful for everything I have. And just, I think I wish more people who are in any sort of position to have a little bandwidth, a little bit of resource, a little bit of notoriety, to use their positions and really try to help the community, whatever that community is, you know?
Yeah, I agree too. So I think the last few minutes I want to talk about how because you just kind of touched on it a little bit, but I just want to talk about how our non-marginalized chefs can help chefs of color. Like what can you do? Because we get that question. Well, what can I do? What can I help? What do you need? And it's like, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what I need. So I don't even know what I'm doing. I can't even tell you what I need. Like, so I feel like it's good to open it up and just have a little candid conversation about where we think that they can help in this fight.
I think if people wanted to truly work in allyship, you have to use your privilege. You have to actually sacrifice something.
Yeah.
Turning your Instagram profile black for one day doesn't do fucking shit. Doesn't do anything. It's performative. It's suddenly like, ooh, I'm an ally, or ooh, I support BLM one time with one gesture. It's not anything. You didn't sacrifice a thing. To sacrifice your money, to sacrifice your position, to think very hard about who you hire. If your staff is, the restaurant industry, particularly in finer dining, is dominated by white men. So if you're a white man and you're running a whole kitchen crew of white men, next time you have an opening, think about that. Think about who you're going to hire. Think about who you're going to give an opportunity to. Think about who you're going to promote within your ranks. Think about who you're giving, chances to, and be conscious of it. You know what I mean? Like when you have power, if you have investors who want to throw money around, maybe point them towards another worthy startup. You know what I mean? That's run by a woman, that's run by a person of color, that's run by a queer person or any marginalized group. Like think about that, like distribute your resources and your wealth, like make some sacrifice. That's what I would say.
Yeah. And I would say too, one of the things that I want them to consider in the space of allyship, if you are with another group of chefs and you're deciding on how to help a marginalized community and there's no representation from said marginalized community, then let's start there. Yes. Find some people that you can take advice from, that you can take cues from, that are in that community before you decide what meets their needs.
Yeah, don't
interpreted them.
Exactly. Don't swoop in and be a white savior and say, I'm going to come help you people with this that I think is your, I've been guilty of it myself, sometimes being eager to help and to make a difference, and then realizing like, oh, this thing that I thought this community or this group needed is not what they needed. They need this other thing that I didn't even think about because I didn't ask anybody.
Right.
And, I think a lot of times well-meaning white people are afraid to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
They say the wrong thing. They're afraid to like ask the wrong thing. And I get that, but make an effort. I think you will be forgiven for a well-intentioned mistake than just standing on the sidelines and doing nothing.
Yeah, I agree with the forgiveness on a well-intentioned mistake versus the inaction,
Yeah.
wholeheartedly and 100%. Okay, so we have the last 15 minutes, and I always like to wrap up with this question. So, like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but sometimes, like, right before my birthday, I just have these, like, little spazzy moments where I just need to check in real hardcore with my therapist. And it's usually because I'm a chef. We have unreasonable personal expectations. Like we just expect ourselves to be able to do unreasonable shit. So she was talking to me about COVID and during this time and using it as a reset. And you know, we've already established that our food system is broken and our restaurant system is broken too. And there needed to be a reckoning and some changing. So what I like to ask everybody, what's something that you are leaving behind? So there's something you were doing in your personal career or your professional career personally, pre-COVID, and then something that you want the industry to leave.
Hmm.
So as COVID goes, you know, I'm coming out of this COVID time. I'm leaving these things personally and professionally for myself. And I also wish that the industry would leave said thing. Like for me, I'm a caterer and sometimes a private chef. I want you to leave $12 a person. That's pre-COVID. Please don't call me after COVID talking about I want to cater something and I got $12. You don't want to cater anything with $12.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really big. That's a great question. That's a great point to like the way people devalue services. And I'll say this too, particularly as an immigrant, people very much devalue immigrant food. The expectation, if you went to a quote unquote American restaurant or a fancy restaurant, you know, you'll drop 30, 40, $60 on a meal. You go to a Thai restaurant and people balk if the pad thai is over $9. You know what I mean? And so the expectation is like, why is this food such low value to you? Because it's made by certain people. Now, if a white person did an Asian fusion restaurant and did some fancy schmancy pad thai with gold leaf on it, they can charge $17 a plate for it. You know what I mean? So it's just like,
It's essentially the same thing that you made, less flavor with gold leaf on it.
yeah, that's a whole thing. Oh, what would I like to leave behind? I definitely think, you know, some of the things that I believe in, and it's a moment where you have to check yourself because you can say, I have all these principles.
Right.
You have to practice it, right? I can't say people need to earn a living wage and then pay my people $7 an hour.
Yeah.
You just can't do that. So I think that's a big part of it for folks who, and honestly, right now I'm talking to well-meaning folks. I'm talking to well-meaning folks who want to make a difference. You have to practice what you preach. If you are preaching workers' rights, you have to give your workers' rights. And sometimes that feels like it goes against your own interests as a boss, as an employer.
But it doesn't.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. It does in the short view and the short term. If you say, I could get away with paying my employees $10 an hour, but I'm going to pay them $13 an hour. Ultimately, what you get, what I've found, you know, I go by the model doing well by doing good. I think
I love that.
I think the two are interlocked. They're not in conflict. If you pay your people a living wage, so I'm in kind of basically a fast casual restaurant situation. Yeah. The turnover rate for our industry, for that particular part of the industry, is over 100%, right? So
you're leaving out the door before you get them trained good.
Exactly. So I've been open. My business has been around for 3 years. Of my 5 current employees, 2 of them have been with me for 3 years. I hired one of them when she was 16. She is a college sophomore now at UK. I love her like a daughter. I have sometimes like heart-to-heart, like disappointed dad conversations with her. You know what I mean? And then this other kid, he's in his early 20s, and he's been working for me for 3 years. And we've had a number of come to Jesus moments of just like, you got to shape up, kid, but I don't give up on them and I don't let them go.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? So it's like, so it's not just about the pay, right? The pay is a part of it. They know they can't go out and get a comparable job that pays this well.
No.
So, but they have to be able to appreciate it beyond like, this is something you're helping me build this brand. You're helping me build this company. You're helping me run this ship. I can't do this without you. You're not a disposable person. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Just take that other level of kind of connecting with your staff and with your employees, and not treat them as just collateral.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's great. So that's your industry thing. We gotta do good by doing well. What about for you personally? Where do you see yourself making personal changes? Because we like to work ourselves until we hit the wall, and then we take a day and recover, and then we go until we go smashing into that wall 100 miles an hour. That was me pre-COVID.
I think the biggest
there anymore.
I think the biggest lesson that I'm in, and I haven't even fully learned it, I'm learning it right now as we speak. Being somebody who's a go-getter, I don't take no for an answer. I like to create my own initiatives and projects. I just go out and make shit up and just go do it. I'm just that type of person. And a lot of small business owners are. I've had to come to the grips that sometimes I just can't do it. Sometimes, no matter my best efforts, it's not going to work. Sometimes you just got to be, sometimes you're helpless. Sometimes you're not going to be effective. And it's so hard for me to wrap my brain around it, because every problem I'm immediately like, well, this is how you solve it. Or have you tried this? Like, it's the thing.
I think that there's that book by Shonda Rhimes called The Year of Yes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I read that in 2019 and I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. And then I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to say yes, because actually for me, there's power of no.
Yes.
No, I can't do that. No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not taking on your emotional baggage. No, I'm not taking on your shit. I feel so bad for you. There's nothing I can do to help you with said situation.
Yeah, because you only have so much, whatever this is, whatever energy or bandwidth, and we give it to other people a lot, and we want to. And then you realize it's a zero-sum game, that you're tapping yourself out, and then you're not useful anymore to anybody, including yourself. So, I mean, self-care this year has been so tough, because a lot of the traditional self-care things like yoga or going dancing with friends or going to the movies or going on vacation, can't do any of that.
No, I've been doing my yoga outside, but just like I'm the same way as the outdoor restaurants. Once it's cold and snowy here, are we still having outdoor boot camp?
Yeah.
So then what am I gonna do?
Yeah. So I think also just right now, I remember a really good lesson, I would say early into COVID, and maybe April or May, I was having a conversation with Weta Michael. She's like the queen of Central Kentucky cuisine. She owns like 8 or 9 restaurants. She's the best person ever, and every chef you meet has worked for her in some capacity, including myself. And I was having a conversation with her, and I was like, what are you going to do? Because she's got all these locations and 100 employees. And she just looked at me and said, I don't know. And
I told you, it's that Dory effect. I don't know. I'm just swimming.
And when I heard her say that, she's like, she's my idol. She's my, she's the person I looked up to. She's the person
like Leslie Jordan on Instagram. You're like, well, shit.
Yeah. And that's like, but in a weird way, it made me feel better, because it wasn't that I wasn't trying hard enough or thinking creatively enough or pushing hard enough that I couldn't get there. Nobody can get there right now, no matter how creative, how successful, how headstrong you are. Sometimes you just have to sit back and be like, I can't do anything about this right now. I just have to sit.
And so I'm gonna just give you this. This is my little self-care thing. So like maybe January or so, was it Oprah was doing her tour? Was that January?
That seems like 20 years ago, but sure.
It does, but I think it was January of this year, honestly. I know, I can't believe it. So anyway, she had Tracy Ellis Ross was one of the 6 or 9 places that they went. And Tracy was talking about one thing. She's like, I don't like to start my day with a shower. That's too abrupt. I start with the bath so that I can ease into my morning instead of like, just like shower is just too like aggressive. I don't like to be that aggressive with myself in the morning, which I thought, like at the time I'm thinking this is, pre-COVID, girl, who has time to take a bath in the morning? Are you crazy? But now I'm like, there might be something to starting your day that way. And then the second thing that she talked about, and this is what I've been telling a lot of my chef friends, is that, we use this like whole like affirmation situation. We're like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And then in most cases, especially now with what you just said, you don't feel any of those things. And so she was talking about, and what I've been talking about is being gentle with ourselves. And this is what I like to encourage all my like chef friends, entrepreneurs, be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself because like you just said, nobody has it figured out. We're all in this space where we're just like navigating and it changes from moment to day to week. What you planned last week is not going to work for this week. And what you planned this weekend is not going to work for 2 weeks from now. And that's not a reflection of you, your ability, or your skills. That's really a reflection of like the times that we're in. And the more gentle you are with yourself, the more useful that we are for this greater movement and not moment. Because what is going on with the restaurant industry, yes, by a stroke of luck, and hopefully for God, some type of rescue package will get passed. But will it happen in enough time? We don't know. So we know that there's going to be a period after that where there's still a lot of like repositioning and cleanup, that goes from that. And knowing that once that volcano erupts, what is it like in Hawaii? There's places that are just now starting to get back to normal after a volcano eruption that was maybe 10, 15, 20, whatever years ago. So it's not going to be something that we're all going to be able to figure out overnight.
Yeah.
We just have to work on being gentle with ourselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So with that, we are wrapping up. Thank you so much, Dan. I will post all of your links on our Facebook page, and this will be up on YouTube probably in the next 30 minutes to an hour or so people can go back and rewatch it if you like. You guys have been watching the conversation. Thank you for participating in our pre-voter advocacy conversations, and we will see you guys next week, 6 o'clock Central, right back here on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.